clearly is indicative and revelatory of God's eternal powers. It says it clearly is seen, and they are without excuse. When they say there's no evidence for God, to believe in God, are they giving an excuse?
Okay, so the first question is that, yeah, so I think that they would be giving an excuse. I absolutely
Is that
think that they would
legitimate?
be
Is that
giving an excuse.
excuse truthful?
Does that excuse truthful? Oh no, I think that they might be conveying what it is that they really think, even though
That's not an answer to my question.
I think so, Darth. I think that
No, I think that it's an evasion. Are they being truthful when they declare that there's no evidence for God? When God says they are without any defense whatsoever, when they do not accept that everything in the world clearly reveals God. So when they say there's no evidence for God, is that true?
I don't think that it's true, Darth, that there is no evidence for God. However,
okay, so what they say is not
Darth,
true,
I don't
then,
think that's
right?
fair. If you don't want to have like a back and forth dialogue, like allow me to say something, and then you
I'm
say
getting the
something.
feeling that you're evading my
No, please
questions.
don't get that feeling.
Are they being truthful when they say there's no?
To finish a sentence. That's all.
You may in a second. All I want to know is when I ask a question, I don't want you to go down semi-related rabbit trails. I'm asking you direct questions, and you are giving me semi-related answers. Are they being truthful when they say there's no evidence for God?
Darth, I feel like because you don't give me the opportunity to speak, you're making assumptions that I'm giving semi-related answers. And I would appreciate if you'd allow me to finish my thought and then make that assessment if I'm giving a semi-related answer.
Shall I ask the question again?
Sure.
Are they being truthful when they declare openly there's no evidence for God?
I don't think that they're being truthful when they make that declaration, but I also believe that doesn't affect or
are they lying to themselves when they say that?
I think that they are in a place where yeah, maybe so. But Darth, here's the thing about all of it.
So you agree with the title that says atheist trolling Nazis?
Come on, are you for real? Like, are you for real right now?
Yeah, I don't need. Yeah, I am real. I don't need you giving me a little mini community college lecture where you sugarcoat the atheist.
Sugarcoat, Darth. I think that somebody that's an atheist, I think that when they look around the world, it is obvious that a God exists. Now, whether they have the inability to accept that truth, it doesn't mean that I need to treat them like a peon.
They have an inability to accept it. They have an inability. See, now again, you're changing the subject. You're actually doing what they do. You are obfuscating the issue that's at hand. What we're talking about is what they do and what they think. Now, are you sticking to that topic?
I'm sticking to. I'm sticking to that. Not only am I sticking to that topic, but I'm also adding in a third element on how they should be treated for how they think.
No. What you're doing is you're not sticking to that topic.
I am.
You're interjecting a new topic in order to obfuscate what the topic is at hand.
No, Doug, I think you're a little bit controlling. And instead of wanting to talk to people and know where they're coming from, you want to control the conversation.
But I am assertively setting the parameters of the room by the title of the room. You are attempting, while pretending to address the question, to segue onto a semi-related topic, which is not the topic, which is, are they being mentally and verbally truthful when they deal with believers? That's the topic. Did you
Mhm.
get?
So I do think that they are being truthful in saying that they believe that there's not evidence. However, hold on,
is their
Doc, you
belief?
can't do that. Let somebody finish their talks.
Wow,
Let them
you must
finish
be a
their
joy.
sentence
You
for
must
crying
be
out
a
loud.
joy on a
Okay,
blind
Doc,
date.
maybe some other time because you don't want to have honest dialogue. You just want to
Oh,
be
I
able to prove
do. I
points.
do. But you
Well, then
see,
allow
you
somebody to
reserve the
finish their
liberty.
sentence for crying out loud.
You see, then if you're
All
going,
right,
if
Doc,
you're going
have
to
a
lay
good
down
day.
that rule,
I'd
if
rather
you're going to
talk
lay
to
down that rule, are you going
atheists
to
who are
follow that
fair
rule?
enough to allow
Are you going
other
to follow
people to
that
talk.
rule? Hey, honey, are you going to follow that rule?
Doris, I'd rather talk to atheists who allow other
Are
perspectives to
you
speak
okay?
than this right here.
Have you
Have a
interrupted
blessed
me at
day,
all
sir.
this time? You see, you want to play by a double standard.
Yeah,
You cut me off any
talk
number
to
of
people who
times.
want to have a real conversation.
I do want to have a conversation with you. Did you cut me off at any time since you've been on stage?
I did, no differently than you've done.
Yeah. Okay. So then, why the emotional double standard?
Because I apologized when I did mine.
Oh, okay. So from now on, we're not going to cut each other off, right?
That sounds like a deal. Thanks, Doug.
Good. Now, number 2, we're not going to segue onto semi-related topics, right?
It depends on if the segue is applicable.
No, it doesn't depend, because I'm not going to permit it. We have a topic here. Are atheists trolling and obfuscating, i.e. that they are lying about what they say? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they say there's no evidence for God, you said that's not true, right?
Whinging at me for 5 hours.
Wait, when I say that they say that there's no evidence for
when
God,
atheists say there's no evidence for God,
my
is that
perspective and
do they have a justification for saying that?
Hey, just stop being argumentative, Doug, and just have a conversation.
It's not argumentative. That's a direct question.
It is. Your tone and everything makes it not desirable to have a conversation.
Fine. Are we gonna play the victim routine because you're a female?
It's not routine. Oh wow. Oh.
Is this the game you're gonna play?
Oh wow.
I'm a little female, and Darth is being aggressive. No, I'm being assertive.
No, Doug, it's not being aggressive. It's being pleasant.
Hey,
a desire to
I'm
want
not
to talk
picking
to
up
someone.
that you're being pleasant. I'm not picking up that you're being pleasant at all.
Well, maybe I should do better
then.
Maybe I should do better then.
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to the topic. Are atheists being truthful, and do they have a justification when they say there's no evidence for God?
So we've agreed we're not going to cut each other off, and I would say that I believe from their perspective, they think that they're being truthful, but
I didn't ask you that.
Oh, Darth, what happened to not cutting people off 5 minutes
cutting you
ago?
off
literally.
because, again, you are evading the question.
Darth, you have to let somebody complete the thought to make that assessment.
I will be glad to let you complete the
thought.
No,
you're not.
As long as you
don't let me. You don't let me.
No, you are being dishonest and
I genuinely
You are not answering my question. Are atheists being truthful when they say there's no evidence for God?
Let me answer your question.
I'm saying, are they being truthful? And do they have a defense when they say there's no evidence for God? Answer that question, please.
Doris, I'm trying to answer your question, but you're not allowing me to answer it because you want to control my answer.
I'm not controlling your answer.
Okay, well then allow me to answer. Allow me to answer.
Okay. I will keep my mouth shut completely like it's super glued as long as you don't evade the question and scurry down a semi-related path.
Yeah, and this is what I hear you saying, Darth.
I'm talking, honey.
I will keep my mouth closed as long as you answer the question.
I don't want to have to kick you off because you see you are a hypocrite. Because
Darth, I'd be fine if you do.
I'm going to mute your microphone. Okay. Now, you are a hypocrite. Because you're telling me, oh, Darth, you're interrupting me. Oh, Darth, you're being controlling. I could go that sleazy route with you the way you're talking with me. I will ask the question, and let's see if you focus on the question. Are atheists being truthful, and do they have a justification when they assert there's no evidence for God?
I'll let you answer the question as long as you let me control your answer. That's what I hear, Darth.
I'm waiting for an answer. If you don't give me an answer to that question
as honestly as I can,
I'm removing you from the room.
Hey, listen, if you remove me, Darth, I'm okay with that at this point. Honestly.
20 seconds.
So I believe that they're being truthful in the way that they really are conveying what they think. But I think the text is saying that they don't have excuse. So I think that when they say that there is no evidence, that they're being truthful in what they think, but the text is saying that no, there is no evidence. There is evidence for God. So they think that when they say I think there's no evidence, that's what they really think. But the text is saying there is evidence. I think they're being truthful in that
So
they
who's
think
right?
there's no evidence. Well, of course, I think that there's evidence for God, because even the
Do they
Bible
think they're
tells me.
truthful because they're guilty of self-deception?
That's what I was going to say. The
Yeah,
self-deception thing.
yeah, I think that they're being truthful in that they think that there's no evidence. But the Bible is telling me that there is evidence.
No. Okay, so you're saying they do have an excuse then?
No, am I saying that they have an excuse for?
Does Romans 1 say they have no excuse whatsoever?
Doris, when I look out my window and I see the
you answer
world,
my question? Would you
Doris,
stop trying to be
stop
controlling?
trying to control how I answer, Doris.
No,
Stop trying to control how I answer.
You keep on answering a question in a semi-related path. Does the Bible say they are without excuse?
Doris, I'm not going to let you control the way that I want to answer.
Okay, goodbye.
If you'd like to remove
you know what?
please do by all means.
You are as bad as they are. Goodbye. See you later. Okay. Wow. What a shocker. We have a so-called professing Christian who I wouldn't be surprised if she was an atheist troll trying to pretend to be a Christian. You see, when I interject when she's talking because she's simply not addressing the question and she's just going blah, 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 blah on a semi-related path. Oh, I'm the abuser. Darth is controlling. It's not that she's being abusive by purposely evading the question. Do you know how many times I ask people straightforward questions and they waste my time by not addressing the question, and then they go, wah, 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 wah. And then when I get done, if I don't interject after they've wasted my time, I say, you didn't address the question. Well, yes, I did. They did it. Wah, 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 wah. Okay. I said, are they being truthful? And she goes, well, I think that they believe that. I didn't ask you that. I said, are they being truthful? Where do they grow people like that? I strongly suspect that she was an atheist troll. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Couldn't it be, Darth, that they were self-deceived? Is that how you would view it? They were self-deceived. At some point, they knew God exists. They accepted the evidence or whatever. Or the evidence was very clear to them. And then they deceived themselves on it.
No, it it still is. It says they are without excuse. Okay?
Wouldn't it be? Yeah, they are without excuse because they were convicted.
Was she attempting to give them an excuse? Well, I think they're being truthful in what they believe. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, it's false that there's no evidence. That's false.
Okay, she claims that she's a Christian. Doesn't Psalm 14 say, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God? Right. Romans 1, I think, Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. Romans 1, ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal powers, his attributes have been clearly seen through what has been made, so they are without an excuse. The word excuse there means a defense whatsoever. So if they are believing otherwise, okay, if they believe otherwise, they are not being truthful to themselves. They are choosing to believe something for which they have no justification for. Okay? And yet they're claiming they're justified. Is that true? If I tell you that I have a justification what if I told you, Andrew, that I believe that there are gigantic marshmallows on the far side of the moon, right? And I conveyed to you directly or indirectly that I had justification for that, right? Would I be telling you the truth?
Well, if there's no marshmallows, then you would not be telling me the truth.
Does the atheist have a defense when they assert there's no evidence for God? Do they have a defense for that? See, this is why I suspect that she was an atheist troll. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I just
But
to
you
be
see,
fair, Darth,
what she is
I know
opting
Selah.
to do. Notice how her whole approach was one on. It was a sociocultural one, rather than what does God say versus what comes out of the mouth of atheists. Notice how she tried to change the subject about, quote, how we deal with the atheist. She tried to change the subject. Notice how when I stopped her from obfuscating and evading the simple question several times, then rather than realize, okay, well, Garth has a point here. No, you're controlling. Well, maybe if you directly answer the question, instead of evading the question, you wouldn't get interrupted. Didn't I make that clear to her? You're getting stopped because you're not addressing the question.
Yeah,
It wouldn't surprise me if this was an atheist troll who is coming up here and trolling, pretending to be a Christian. Because if she was not an atheist and she was trolling, then why is she trying to sugarcoat the atheist position? Why? Well, she goes, I think that they believe that. They have no reason to believe that. The scripture says they are without a defense. There is no justifiable reason whatsoever for an atheist to believe and proclaim there's no evidence for God.
I agree with you, Darth. I was just wondering, do you think they can be self-deceived and honestly believe what they're saying is true?
No, not in that case.
So you think
the belief state is just something that they recapitulate over and over again in order to suppress the truth and the righteousness, because the evidential nature of everything indicating God never goes away. Okay. Welcome to the room, Perfect. What would you like to say?
Yeah, thank you. We talked a little yesterday about New Earth versus Old Earth creation point of view.
Well, that's off topic, but since I talked with you yesterday, well, I'll grant that. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry if it's off topic.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I didn't really have a question about that, but I just wanted you. Maybe you didn't. You talked to a lot of people, so it could be that you didn't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
So my question today: did you look more up about the Candice model?
No. Would you care to send me a link?
Yeah, I will do that.
Can you summarize that in one sentence?
Yeah, like I said, his name is Dr. John Candice. He's a Christian Pentology researcher. He looked into proof of old Earth versus new Earth, and I'm kind of reading his book, and he claims to be an old Earth believer.
Yeah. Well, then he's got a problem with Jesus. Because Jesus said Adam and Eve were made in the beginning. Okay? How can Jesus in Matthew 19 refer to God and Adam and Eve being made in the beginning if they were brought into existence eons and eons and eons after the beginning of creation? Okay?
Right, and I also bought the book actually that you recommend me, so I appreciate that. I bought it from Amazon.
What book is that? Was that the book by Eugene Koonin, The Logic of Chance?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's not an easy read, I'll just warn you, because this guy is really smart. I don't agree with him on certain things. Of course, his evolution advocacy. But let me ask you this question. What do you think is the number one reason why people believe the Earth is old?
Number one reason,
Yeah.
I would probably say that it's very popular in science. I would
So, not
probably,
on evidential grounds, but because of the ubiquity of the consensus.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, why do you think that those people in the scientific community who do believe in an old Earth, what do you think the reason is? Other than there's
Other than conforming,
other than conforming to the populace, yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, the number one thing I hear over and over again, people would say was like carbon dating, which you can't carbon date rocks, unless, of course, there's carbon inside. But rocks are not known to ingest carbon-14. But anyway, the answer is radiometric isotope dating. But you see, the problem with radiometric isotope dating is that whenever you appeal to a isotope within the rock to ascertain the age, and then you count backwards to its putative parent element, you're assuming that the rock and the isotope in question is as old or older than the rock. Okay? Well, excuse me, not the isotope, the daughter element, but that the rock as the container, right, is as old or older than the isotope. So you first have to presuppose the falsity that the isotope is slightly older in terms of a couple of thousand years than the advent of the rock in terms of a fiat young earth creation. You have to presuppose that the rock is eons old in order to then do calculations as to the so-called age of the isotope. Okay?
Is there other things in science you would say is rebuked by Christianity, other than the dinosaurs and humans living together?
Well, when I shouldn't say science, because science doesn't say anything. There are scientists who make proclamations. But when they make retrodictions that the universe began with an explosion, and that everything is simply the result of eons of a mechanical, mechanistic result over unimaginable periods of time, that's not science. It may use scientific vocabulary and nomenclature, that's not science. That's metaphysics. That is a metaphysical retrodictive explanation as to origins in a materialistic scheme posing as science. Okay?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking, are there other things that you would disagree to that is very like popular in scientific communities?
Like what?
I don't know. Well, we have one example of the young Air Forces, older, where you disagree with the popular science. So, do you have other examples where you disagree with popular science?
Not that I'm immediately aware of. But you see, just because you call it science doesn't mean that it's, quote, science. You see, there's a big difference between finding what appears to be a bone, a fossilized remains of a bone within certain rock layers, and then to give a retrodiction as to what, when, and how it was, versus what the specific gravity is of a rock, or what the chemical makeup of certain substances are, where you can do observation, testing, and repeatability. You can't repeat the past.
Well, okay. What about flat Earth? Are you a flat earther as well?
What do you think?
I don't know. I met Christians that are flat earthers.
Well, then I would doubt that they're really Christians. I think that they're just trolls. I think that 3/4 or more of the people who are flat earthers are just lying. They're just contrarians pulling people's chains, and the rest of them are crazy. Anyway, not to discourage you, but if anyone would like to raise your hand and come up and change my mind that atheists troll and obfuscate, and I'm really strongly suspecting that Sheila, whatever her name was an atheist troll. Okay. See, all you have to do is, if I ask you a direct, circumspect question, answer the question. The content can be contrary to what I agree with, but as long as you're focused on the question and you're not trying to pretend like you're answering the question and going down some semi-related rabbit trail, it was clear that she wanted to change the subject. Okay? And she wanted to focus on, well, they believe what they're saying. It's not what I asked. I said, are they speaking the truth?
Yeah, I'm pretty new here. I would say I don't troll, and I'm still an atheist.
Okay, well, let's see. There are different degrees of trolling. Okay, so notice the room says they troll and obfuscate. So I will ask you this. Do you have a rational basis for your God denialism?
No, but I don't believe I deny God.
Okay. I don't agree with you, but that was a substantive response. See? And I didn't jump all over you. Now, so you are claiming you don't deny God. And so I take it you neither affirm God as well?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what you're claiming is that you're taking a neutral stance toward the existence and non-existence of God.
Well, I'm not sure I'm neutral. I would say I take a passive approach to God. I wouldn't say neutral.
Do you affirm God's existence?
No.
Do you deny God's existence?
No.
Do you suspend judgment as to both propositions?
Yes.
That's what we call being neutral.
Okay.
Okay. Now, here's the problem. Would you agree that when we talk about God in terms of conceptually as to God's character, right, that God being defined as the ground of all being, the creator of all things that are not himself, that God is in a category unlike anything else? Are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would agree to that. That's definitely the definition I've seen Christians use.
Now, I would agree with you that we can be neutral toward some propositions. Now, do you believe that you could be neutral toward all propositions?
Oh, that's a heavy question, but no, I don't believe I could be neutral to every position. If someone asked me if I believed in... Sorry?
Now, I said propositions.
Oh, proposition, I'm sorry. Yeah, if someone said Sherlock Holmes was a true man, I would say that no, he's a...
No. I'm saying, could someone be legitimately neutral even though you think you have a powerful case for the non-existence? Okay? We're just talking about, could somebody justifiably be neutral even though, lay a claim to neutrality even though they might be wrong?
Sure.
Okay. So, you agree that you can't be neutral toward all propositions. Could it be the case that God is one of those categories that you truly can't be neutral? However, because people do not want to have to defend one camp or another, that they resort to the false claim of neutrality? Could that be?
Most definitely, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you why neutrality is impossible toward God, right? And the answer is this. God is not just simply an entity that you believe or don't believe in. When we talk about God as the creator, we're talking about a model of reality. We're talking about a worldview. So either we will believe in the God world, the God worldview, or we will not believe in the God worldview.
Do you mind if I ask a small little question here?
No, go ahead.
Does that also contain to other religions and also their worldview? Can we say that we're neutral to the Muslim God or Thor or the Egyptian gods or?
Well, right now, what we're talking about is whatever you just invoke will either be conceptualized within the framework of the God world or the not God world. Okay? Now, the God world is the concept that what is metaphysically primary, what is fundamental to everything that is not itself, is a mind. Okay? and that everything else that is not that mind, God, came into existence and depends upon God. Now, if one does not accept that, then whatever they speak will be encompassed or encapsulated by the not God world. So if I invoke to you a rock
Could you
on the side
repeat
of
the
the road,
last part one more time?
yeah, if you don't believe in the God world, okay, by choice, then whatever propositions that you hold to will be encompassed or encapsulated in terms of the not God world. Because facts, individual facts themselves, other than the comprehensive worldviews themselves, those facts will either be encapsulated by the God world or the not God world. So there can't be any neutral facts, ontologically speaking. A fact will either necessitate referencing the necessity of God, or the fact will be invoked without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God.
Yeah, so I'm going to pretend I'm really stupid. So it would kind of like saying that an apple is an apple. I don't really have any fundamental necessity of saying that an apple is an apple.
Okay.
Is that kind of what it is?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you invoke facts in your mind or through your words, do you, when you invoke those facts directly or indirectly, reference the necessity of God? Do you do that?
I don't believe that I do that, but yeah. And you're asking what I'm on.
Okay, so you choose not to reference the necessity of God as the ultimate precondition of whatever fact you're invoking. Of course you choose it. Of course you choose it.
Why is that?
Okay, what time is it where you are?
5 o'clock.
Okay, did you eat today?
Yes.
Okay. When you sat down to eat, what did you eat?
I had bread with peanut butter and pickles on it.
Wow, and you like that?
Yeah. I know. A lot of people are like, really? Peanut butter and pickles? That sounds disgusting.
Are you pregnant with a deep sounding voice? Because pregnant women, sometimes eat weird things. But to me, I don't think you sound like a woman. But
yeah, no. Last time I checked, Darth, I'm not.
when you ate your food, did you thank God for your food?
No, I didn't think anybody actually.
Okay, so you didn't reference God in your mind when you ate your food, did you?
No.
Okay. So when you do invoke facts, will you right now reference the necessity of God when you invoke facts? Will you do that now? The silence is deafening.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
He's slicing those pickles.
I would say that an argument for God in the way you're laying it towards me is pretty good.
I'm asking you, will you do that right now? Will you say hello to everyone who's in the audience? Will you do that?
Sure. Hello.
Okay. Will you reference the necessity of God right now when invoking facts? Will you do that?
No, because I don't really know. Well,
Okay. So you've decided. So you've decided that in your mind it's not necessary to invoke and reference God as the ultimate precondition.
Right.
If you believed that God was the necessary precondition of all things, then you would do that. You would say, yeah, God is the necessary precondition of all facts when you invoke facts.
Yes.
Whether it's explicit or implicit. But you don't believe that God is the necessary precondition. You don't believe it's necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition. So what that means is you have a belief about facts, that facts can and will be invoked without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God. That's what you believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if somebody says God is not necessary for whatever, okay? Have you ever heard somebody saying, well, why don't you believe in God? And they say, well, God isn't necessary. You ever heard somebody give that answer?
I haven't. No, I didn't really talk to atheists or Christians. So
it's a common. I want the audience to notice that he and I are not agreeing on a lot. But you see, what he is doing, and we're having a good back and forth, is that he is responding for the most part to the questions. He's not being evasive to a large degree. Now, you invoke facts, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay. When you invoke facts, do you have the choice to either reference the necessity of God, or do you have the capacity to choose to not reference the necessity of God?
Well, I think that's a harder question, to be honest. I don't know if
I said, do you have the choice?
I do have the choice, yes.
There. What do you choose to do, sir?
Well, I choose not to put God in it. Yeah, I would say I choose
Okay,
that.
so you believe that facts can and will be invoked as standalone until demonstrated otherwise that they necessitate God. Would that be your position? And if you need me to repeat that, I'll repeat it.
Yes. Yeah. No. That is my position. I would
Okay.
say so.
Now,
I would say. Yeah. Can I just say one thing? I would say that that position isn't really strong because I could be convinced that I'm wrong because I'm always looking for another way.
We're not discussing the future.
Right. I'm just saying.
Okay. So here's the bottom line: is you choose not to reference God because you believe that facts can be invoked standalone without invoking and referencing the necessity of God.
Yes.
Now, if somebody says, why don't you believe it? If I say to a person, why don't you believe in God? And they say, well, because God's not necessary. Such a statement is the equivalent of saying God doesn't exist. Do you realize that?
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Yeah. Well, then the question is, when I say, why don't you believe in God? And they say, well, because God doesn't exist. Are they being informative to me? No, they're not. They're just recapitulating their initial position. It doesn't tell me how they came to the conclusion God doesn't exist. Okay? So when somebody communicates that God is not necessary, whether that statement, God is not necessary, is explicit or implicit, it still constitutes the denial of God. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I think it's kind of yeah. If I may say, I would say that having absolutely no reason to believe in God is not a good reason to not believe in God.
Okay. So when you claim to be neutral, you're not actually neutral because you believe that facts can be invoked without the necessity
I
of
understand
referencing
that
God.
position now. Yes.
So you're not really neutral. You claim to be neutral, but it doesn't. The claim of neutrality does not hold up under examination.
Yeah. Other than I'm not sure I like the word neutral, I would agree to that. Yes.
Right. So in actuality, what you do believe and affirm about the nature of facts, including that you choose not to reference the necessity of God, logically entails and commits you to the not God world.
Yes, sir. I would say so.
Right. So your position is God denialism, whether it's direct or indirect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So why is it then that your position is God doesn't exist? And let's see if you give a non-obfuscatory answer.
I'm sure I'm not going to do that.
By the way, what is your country of origin?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm half African, and also I'm half Swedish.
Yeah, because I was just wondering what your first language was.
Oh yeah, it's Swedish and African.
Okay, Afrikaans. Okay.
Yeah, Afrikaans. Yeah.
Okay.
But I speak English, kind of.
Your English is perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah. One of the reasons why I don't believe in God is that I really haven't seen any proof of him. I don't really think that's a good argumentation.
So God doesn't exist. Well, when you say there's no proof of him, you just violated your own critique because you said when somebody says I don't believe in God because I don't have a reason to believe in God, and you criticize that, right?
Yes. So
that's exactly what you just said.
I also said that
when you say there's no proof of God, when you say there's no proof of God, that's going to mean one of two things. Either if somebody says there's no evidence for God, what they mean is that something is not and cannot constitute standing in causal relations to God because they already have ascertained what is ultimate on a grand scale, and then it's not God. But that's rarely what people mean.
Right.
What they mean is that the evidence is indeterminate. It's kind of like if you and I are homicide detectives and we find a gun lying on the kitchen floor next to a dead body with a bullet hole. And I say to you as your homicide partner, detective, and I say, that gun is not evidence of a homicide. And you say, well, we just got here. How did you determine that? And I turn to you and I say, well, somebody is yet to show me reasons to believe that there is a connection between the gun and the dead body. So what I would be saying is that the gun is indeterminate as the murder weapon.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I said to you, well, that's a water pistol that's been painted black.
Right.
I would then be saying that it is not and cannot be evidence because it cannot and does not stand in causal relations to the bullet wound.
Right.
But
And when I answered
when
the question, I also said it's a bad argument. So I do agree that it's a bad argument. I would.
so when
Yeah.
you believe that there's no God, you're either doing so because you desperately don't want there to be a God, because you would then be culpable to that God, or
Well,
you're
that
not God,
disagree.
and so your God denialism would be by virtue of preserving and protecting your autonomy and not wanting to embrace your creatureliness. And if that is not the case, then your God denialism would either be utterly and completely irrational,
Yeah.
or there's a rational basis for the God denialism.
I don't know how many
and
cases
if
that you
you're
need
if
that says this stuff, but I really, really wish I was a believer.
I
There's,
don't
there's
I don't
things.
believe you I don't believe that at all.
Okay, yeah. We can look a little into why you don't believe that. But one of the reasons why.
Are you a believer that there's a planet that orbits the sun called Mars?
Yes.
Okay. Now you believe it, and you want to believe it because it's evidentiary. You tell me you want to believe in God, but then you refuse. On what grounds?
Well, I would say that, like I said, one of the reasons were bad. Another reason is because I see that there's so many arguments for different gods that I find it hard to.
Okay, but now that's bait and switch. There's a difference between discussing whether there's ice cream in the bowl versus what flavor of ice cream. Your position is there's
I find it very
no ice.
confusing.
Your position is there's no ice cream in the bowl. Now, either your God denialism is a suppression of the truth and unrighteousness, as Romans 1 says, and that you are guilty of what we could call resistant non-belief, or you can lay claim that you are a practitioner of non-resistant unbelief. But that unbelief is actually a belief that God doesn't exist, and that belief will either be utterly arbitrary and irrational, or there's a rational basis for it.
Right.
So, which of those scenarios represent you?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a question I haven't thought about, to be honest.
Okay. Is your God denialism, your atheism, rational?
The more I think about it, no.
So then either you're adopting atheism because you're choosing to be crazy, or you desperately do not want God, or, I'm not saying you're crazy, because I don't think you are crazy, or you are actually guilty of resistant non-belief, because the idea that you are creaturely and consequently culpable to God as creator is something that you do not want to be true.
Well, I guess what happens if I accept that God exists? I then come to the next problem. What God?
Okay. Again, we haven't gotten there yet. Okay.
Right.
What I'm trying to show you is that I can, and I will present the case for God. But what I'm trying to show you is you have no recourse by which you can go, nope. You're going to have to sit there in absolute silence when the case of God is presented. And if you're not going to be silent and accept that God is, by virtue that he's revealed himself, or you're going to have to present the rational basis. Okay?
Yeah,
Now,
I would.
if you-
Yeah,
if-
I
if
would
you-
rather believe. I would rather be rational. That's my answer.
So your position then is, now, just think about it this way. If the biblical account, the diagnosis that God has given us of the character and
Mhm.
nature of man, including you and me, is that either we will accept that God has revealed himself, or that we will be guilty of resistant non-belief. Right? Now, isn't it clear that if somebody is a practitioner of resistant non-belief, that they're going to want to deny that they're actually doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a practitioner of resistant non-belief will tend to say, no, I'm not resistant. I am practicing non-resistant unbelief.
Right. Yeah, no, I would agree to it.
I can only conclude that somebody is a practitioner of resistant non-belief until and if they give me a reason, a rationale for their God denialism.
Right.
But if somebody has no rational case to be made, other than maybe some mumbo jumbo, which a lot of atheists do. How do you say mumbo jumbo in Afrikaans?
Mumbo jumbo.
How about in Swedish?
Ja, jag talar lite svenska.
There you go, see?
Yeah.
So, since I'm a Christian and I hold to that God is and that God has revealed himself in creation and undeniably and irrefutably in human history within the context of the Christian worldview as a composite worldview in the Bible, that I have to go by what God says, not by what people tell me what their diagnosis of themselves is. So the Bible says everybody who does not accept that God revealed himself in creation and progressively in the Christian scriptures through Jesus Christ are practitioners of resistant non-belief. And the only way to get you and anyone else that are practitioners of resistant non-belief to come to acknowledging this is to show you that you have no defensible, excusable alternative. It's the only way to show you that you're in defiance against the God that you know. So if you claim that you're not unrepentant and that you are not in a state of resistant unbelief, then what's the rational basis for your unbelief?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's, to be honest, it's something I haven't thought that much about.
The answer is there is none, is there?
Not that I can think of, no.
Right. So then that means that we only have one explanatory framework that fits. You don't want there to be a God.
I mean, it's crazy now.
You desperately don't want there to be a God because you already do know there's a God because he's made you. But if God made you, then that means you're culpable and you're accountable to him, and hence you're a sinner in need of salvation, but you don't want to repent. So in order to absolve yourself of the requirement of repentance toward God and faith in Jesus Christ, you just come up with, well, I'm an unbeliever. Right?
So, can I ask a
Why
follow-up
are you in a
question?
state of unbelief?
Can I take a follow-up question? What is the criteria in your mind then to proclaim your beliefs?
Are you talking about specifically to God or just in general?
No, specifically to the Christian God.
that he has sufficiently and undeniably revealed himself. So when I take a look at the Christian scriptures as a composite from Genesis to Revelation, when I look at the proposition and doctrinal positions that it expounds on, again, from Genesis to Revelation, that these are such as a composite package, as a composite worldview, that the denial thereof, as again, and I hate to be redundant, but as a composite propositional package, it is a package that cannot be denied, and more specifically, it is a worldview that is indispensable in terms of the ontology that it presents of the world, that we cannot do without. And here's what I mean. If somebody says we can do without the God of the Bible, his basic character set, and what he has revealed to us about the nature of human existence and human history, that when we remove that from our frame of reference, that this is what the nature of reality is, that we're in God's plan, we are God's creatures, then there will be no other ground of all being to which we can invoke. Okay?
Yeah.
And therefore, we will have no grounds to so much as say the grass blows in the wind. If our God denialism, and specifically the Christian God, is outright denied.
Would you say?
Okay.
Yeah. Would you say that?
Let me just say this real quick, and then you can go on at length. The proof, the absolute and undeniable proof of the self-testimony of Jesus Christ by himself and through his appointed agents, the apostles, is that his self-identity claims are one that, on an ontological scale, the grand scheme of things, that one cannot do without. And if you claim to do without, you're going to have to explain how anything at all can be intelligible were it not instituted and secured by the person of Jesus Christ as God Almighty.
Would you say that God has a specific Christian domination that he has blessed more than others?
I couldn't tell you of a specific denomination. However, the number of participants is no guarantee that a particular domination is correctly representing what God teaches. There are cults that number in the millions. That doesn't mean that they're blessed of God. I think the true test of any particular church organization and association is what they claim to believe, usually in a statement of faith, does it accurately represent what the Bible and specifically the New Testament teaches? And to the degree that they deviate from that, go ahead.
No, I just wonder why there are so many Christian sects and so many Christian denominations.
Okay, let me see if I can find a link for you. Hold on a second. To a video that, just give me a second. I know I saved it in my YouTube videos here. Let me see if I can find it. There is a video here that the number of denominations that most people cite is completely inaccurate. because they're not taking in consideration the source of this material. And what I mean by that is that one of the main sources of denominational counts comes from the fact that they will count a denomination once for every country that it appears. So let's say we have a denomination. Suppose we have a denomination in the United States, a denomination in the United States. It's the same denomination in Canada. Well, that will now be counted as two denominations. So what we have here is that the number of denominations, based upon the most popular source of counting denominations, is based upon a counting that really isn't. I don't want to say it's inaccurate. It's accurate insofar as what it is at face value. They're only counting denominations as they represent themselves from each individual country. So the number total amount of denominations from this source, and I forget what the source is. I could if I find the YouTube link for it, I'll give it to you.
Baptists, there are multiple branches out of the Baptist Church that have created church.
Baptist is such a broad term. Baptist no longer.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's my point.
Look, you can find a Baptist church where they're fundamentals of Bible believing. You can have another Baptist church that are wacko liberals, where they share little in common. Okay, so the term Baptist is not really a good term. Let's say even the term Presbyterian. At one time, Presbyterian churches were only solidly biblical. Now you have Presbyterian churches that are solidly fundamentalist and others that are radically liberal. I don't mean that as a pejorative.
And then you have Seventh-day Adventists, then you have the Mormons, then you have Jehovah's Witnesses, then I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
All right, I'm trying to look up the video on denominations where he breaks down that the number of denominations out there have been far exaggerated from what they really are, because denomination is only counted one per its instance in a country. So, for example, if the same denomination is represented in, let's say, 50 countries, that's 50 denominations rather than one.
Right, and I disagree with that.
Yeah, and that's the source that most people are referring to.
Yeah, but you can't deny that we have Greek Orthodox churches, we have, like I said, Mormon churches, we have Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Pentecostal.
Those are cults.
Yeah, I agree. We have Smith's Friends, we have the Moonies.
Okay. Okay, here it is. I got it for you. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to get you the link. Okay.
Well, I think the reason why I ask is that I do think that if I go to church, because as I understand the gospel when I read, Christians should meet.
Did you see your messages? I just sent you a link.
Yeah.
Are there 45,000 denominations?
Thanks.
This video goes in and he shows the most common source that unbelievers cite for the number of denominations is an inaccurate representation. Now, the individual or people that originally compiled this list, it's not so much that they're wrong, it's just that they have decided that they are going to count the number of denominations by only in terms of instances per country.
Right.
So is it really fair to say that if we have XYZ denomination in the United States and in Canada, that's two different denominations?
Definitely not.
Okay, well, that's the rationale. That's the statistic that is based upon the rationale that most unbelievers are citing about, well, there's tens of thousands, and the title of the video is,
But
are
I
there
guess
really
my
45,000
question is,
denominations?
how do
even
I
even if there's 1,000 denominations, the point is, what we are going to have is that when you read the New Testament, what you find out is that Satan is alive and well. To quote Hal Lindsey, the late great Planet Earth, he wrote a book called Satan is Alive and Well. Sowing discord and false teaching and false believers. When you read through the New Testament, a part of the New Testament was written while the apostles were still alive, because they were people that were introducing destructive and false teachings, or were misrepresenting the teachings of Jesus or the apostles. And so what you get in certain denominational distinctions, sometimes you can have a legitimate difference of opinion, sometimes not. But for the most part, what you have is one group separating from another because they don't stand on certain doctrinal positions. It's not because the Bible is confusing. It's because they disagree that other churches are not accurately representing the Bible. The issue is, the problem isn't the Bible, the problem is people. And speaking of problem people, let's bring up Matt Slick.
Yeah, I guess I just want to know kind of how I determine what church I should go to.
Well, you should go to a church that is a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church. Do they believe the Genesis account is true? Do they believe in the fundamentals of the faith, that the Bible is the infallible, inspired, inerrant Word of God? Do they believe that it is necessary for each and every person to be born again and place their faith in Jesus Christ as Savior in order to escape the eternal judgment? Okay? And then when you start to use that criterion, that greatly reduces the number of churches, because many churches do not. Welcome, Matt Slick. I hope you don't mind me calling you a problem person. He's mad. He's mad because he didn't open up his microphone.
Because you called him a problem person?
I called him a Matt Slick a problem person. Here he goes.
Can you hear me?
I can, problem person. Go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm not sure. Can you hear me or not hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was talking there and because it didn't work. Yeah, I'm definitely a problem person. That's what my wife says. So, yeah, confirmed.
So watch out. I may have to kick you from the stage.
Yeah, I would deserve it, I'm sure.
Yes. Okay, what say you on atheist trolling and obfuscating? Are there any atheists that don't troll or obfuscate to some degree, in your grand opinion?
I would say that there are atheists who do it a lot, and then there are atheists who do it not so much. But they all, to some degree, do. And the reason is because they don't have the mind to see. They can't understand the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
So they are practitioners of resistant non-belief rather than non-resistant unbelief.
Ooh, I like that. Resistant non-belief. Hey, I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, actually, Matt Adams brought up that type of terminology to me, and I said, "Where'd you get that from?" And he said he was reading a syllogism by a semi-famous atheist whose name escapes me at the moment, and he classified people as either being practitioners or categorized as resistant, in a state of resistant non-belief versus non-resistant unbelief. And I thought, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's good.
You have to use
And
that. That's good.
We had, speaking of the topic trolls, we had a woman come up early on, and she and I didn't get along too well. But she was trying to, when I said, are atheists speaking the truth when they say there's no evidence for God? Now, let me ask you this thing. How would you respond succinctly not that I don't want to hear you at length. If I said to you, are atheists speaking the truth when they say there's no evidence for God? How would you respond to that?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I'd say they can be, well, they're suppressing the truth, but let's say that, are they lying? Lying's an intention. So are they aware that they're lying, or they just don't know and they're speaking the lie, but they think they're speaking the truth? Those are two directions I would go with each one and find out, but that's what I would do.
Well, the question is framed within Romans 1, that they are without a defense.
In that context, absolutely. They're suppressing the truth. They're lying to themselves, especially, and of course to God, because they're knowingly denying Him when the Scripture says that they have that knowledge of Him. So, yep.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked the question is because they are without a defense whatsoever when they verbalize that the world and all its contents are not to be reckoned to be revelatory and indicative of God. But she wanted to talk about, and she claimed to be, she said she was a theological nerd, and she wanted to start talking about, well, they believe such and such when they say it. Well, so I then asked her, so they have an excuse? Because Romans 1 says they don't.
Well, they still believe it, which means they're even more responsible because they're admitting they believe. And their belief is affirmative because they don't include God in the explanatory power. So therefore, it's an open, direct decision on their part. So they're just admitting their own guilt.
Yeah, they are choosing to believe something for which they know is indefensible. So they know that they're lying, even though they continue to lie to themselves. By the way, one of these days, I want to get around and read Greg Bonson's paper, his doctoral dissertation on
Deception.
Yeah, it's the nature of self-deception.
Oh, yeah.
But I thank you very much, Darth. You have given me a lot to think about.
Well, let me thank you. We didn't agree on certain things, and you only obfuscated to a very small degree in comparison to most atheists.
I take that as a compliment, believe it or not.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think there was an attempt to evade some things, but on the more mild scale compared to your average run-of-the-mill atheist. And even though we didn't agree on certain things, we got along because you were being far more transparent and obfuscatory than most atheists, and that's why we got along, even though we disagree. The reason why I don't get along with most atheists is because they are pathological obfuscators.
John, do you mind if I ask Matt a question before I go?
Sure, go ahead.
Not at all. Go ahead.
I see that.
That's why I brought him up.
Carm.org?
Yes, I'm the guy with Carm. Uh-huh.
Ah, okay. I'm a big fan of yours then. I have actually looked at your website more than once.
Well, good. Appreciate that. Yeah.
It's good too. Are you a New Earth believer as well?
A what believer?
A New Earth believer.
New Earth, as in the future?
He meant Young Earth.
No, sorry.
Creationist.
Yes, I hold to young Earth. I don't know how young, though, but yeah, I don't believe it's millions of years old.
Okay, thank you.
And I have reasons for it, scientific-based reasons as well.
Yeah, do you have some articles about that on Carm?
No, but we are developing them. We're actually got somebody working on the science part of it. But no, there's dating problems in the stuff. I could read some quotes to you if you want. If not, no big deal. But there are some serious dating problems with the rocks.
The only piece of evidence that I have ever found troublesome, mitigating against young Earth creationism, would be the number of wrinkles on Nancy Pelosi's face.
That's true. I can see that. Yep. Yeah, there's some problems.
Do you know what one radio announcer calls her Grandma Vodka?
Grandma Vodka.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever listened to her give speaking when she's before press conferences?
She's a witch, but yeah.
Grandma Vodka. Anyway, if anyone would like to come up and broach the topic and ask Matt some questions or challenge Matt, you're free to come up here. Raise your hand and come on up. I'll be glad to sit here silently while you challenge Mr. Slick.
Yeah. Hey, Perfect, are you still there?
Yeah.
And can I read you some quotes about the problems of the age of the Earth?
Yeah, sure. That would be perfect.
This is from Principles of Isotope Geology, the second edition, New York, 1986. Okay? So these are from officials. These are not a bunch of Christians, so to speak. Pleistocene rock layer its positioning is 1.6 million years old. That's where it's supposed to be geologically, they say. But when you apply the rubidium-strontium dating method, instead of 1.6 million, you get 773 million years old. The upper Miocene to Pliocene lava, potassium-argon method gives you 5 to 9 million years old. Rubidium-strontium gives you 31 to 39 million years old. Or Pliocene to Holocene lava, stratigraphically dated, that means in the age where it's supposed to be in the geological record, less than 5.3 million years old. Yet using the rubidium-strontium method, 570 to 870 million years old. Just all kinds of stuff like this. In Australia, this is from Radioisotopes and the Age of the Earth, Isochron Discordances and the Role of Inheritance and Mixing of Radioisotopes in the Mantle and Crust. And Australian rock samples of Jurassic age, 216 to 225 million years old. Got a potassium-argon date within that range. The isochron date within that range. The rubidium-strontium said it was 400 million years old, though. Or the lead dating method, 1.4 billion years old. Or 1.4 million years old. So there's problems in their dating. And why this is so critical is because evolution needs a long period of time to work, and yet the dating of the rock shows wildly different dates. That puts in doubt the age of these rocks. It puts in doubt the age of the necessity of evolution. I can go through more stuff. Are you there?
I'm here, I'm listening.
Yeah. Alanis, are you there?
I guess not. We did have in here...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm problem with my unmute button for some problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know if you have read, I know that Darth hadn't, but have you heard about John Candace and the Candace problem?
No.
Okay, so yeah, he's a Christian Pentology person that believes in old Earth. But yeah.
Yeah, there's people on all sides that believe all kinds of stuff. But there are some very challenging problems. For one, carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,730 years. Half-life means if you have a gram of carbon-14 in 5,730 years, just sitting there, it's now half a gram. So this means that within 100,000 years, technically 93, but within 100,000 years, there should be no carbon-14 left in anything that was once alive. The only way to get carbon-14 is through respiration and environmental existence. You have to be alive. And so eating, it's like a squirrel, for example, absorbs, all animals do, absorbs carbon-14. And when it dies, that absorption rate ceases. And then the half-life thing begins. And so after 100,000 years, there should be no carbon-14 in anything like that, except that they're finding carbon-14 in diamonds, which are supposed to be almost 1 billion years old. And they're finding them in coal shells, which are supposed to be hundreds of millions of years old, and yet they're finding carbon-14 in them, which contradicts the idea of it really being old. That's just one of the other things.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Then there's the problem of what's called genetic entropy.
Yeah.
And the human genome decaying.
I would love to hear more on that, but I really have to go.
Okay. Sure, buddy. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there. There is. Okay. Anyway, gonna talk to you later, man.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have Randolph Richardson, the founder and director of that prestigious organization of Canadian atheists. Could you explain to us how it's legitimate and rational for you to claim a position of neutrality toward God?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for that lovely introduction. I do appreciate it. It's how I'm born. So I've not taken a position on whether or not a deity exists. And the same can be said for a lot of other things as well.
Okay. So your position is that you neither affirm nor deny the existence of God?
That's correct. I don't believe that they exist, and I don't believe that they don't exist. I'm also agnostic in that I don't know whether they exist.
Is there a single word in the English language that designates the denial of the existence of God? Does such a word exist?
I guess you could say, I guess it depends how strongly you want to use the word denial. If someone's actually taking a position and saying absolutely they don't exist in that sense of denial, then you could throw that under anti-theism, I suppose, which has traditionally been anti-religious.
No, anti-theism does not refer to the actuality of God. Is there a single word in the English-speaking world? Is there a single word that is used widespread in the English language to designate and to denote those who deny the existence of God? Does such a word exist?
I was trying to give you a complete answer. So, just touch a little more on anti-theism. It is diverging, so there is still the anti-religious sentiment, and then the others are...
Can you answer the question instead of fulfilling the title of the room that you're obfuscating? You're obfuscating. No, you're not. No, you're not. Do you know why? You know why? You know why that's an outright lie? Yeah, I am interrupting you because you're lying. Okay?
Because you don't like the answer. That's why you're interrupting me.
Okay, that's a sleazy tactic. The issue is not that I don't like the answer. I thought you were upset about interrupting. No, that's a sleazy response, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I asked that question. I ask that question morning, noon, and night. I ask it all the time, and the vast majority of people. No, I want a simple answer. Is there a single word in the English language that is used widespread in the English-speaking world, which is used to denote and to designate the denial of God? Does such a word exist?
So the other half of my answer is that yes, there is a word, an additional word of atheism, which can be used in that manner.
So you've adopted a word that is used widespread in the English language, and especially by philosophers. Okay, a broad, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
a broad cross section of philosophers, as well as the English-speaking world, use the word atheism and atheism to designate the denial of God, but you're adopting that label when you don't deny God?
In a very soft sense. Denial in a very soft sense, in that we don't believe.
Okay, so when you don't have a belief, so when you invoke facts, your facts by choice are without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God?
Yeah, and the reason for that is I don't believe in God.
Okay, so in a God world, all facts would necessitate referencing God. In a not God world, all facts would be without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God. Do you accept that analysis?
That is a valid scenario, so I can accept that as a valid scenario.
So you are accepting the qualification of facts, that is, that facts don't necessitate referencing the necessity of God. That is the type of facts that you accept?
That they don't necessitate referencing the necessity of God. No, I can accept that.
Okay, that logically and necessarily commits you to the non-existence of God.
It's not necessary for me to do that. I don't have to go that far.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell you why. Okay, there are only two worlds. There's the God world and the not God world, ontologically speaking. Do you accept that?
Ontologically, I agree. I agree ontologically.
Okay, now in the God world, by definition, within the God world, all facts would necessitate referencing the necessity of God. Okay? Now, in the not God world, all facts do not necessitate referencing the necessity of God. Now,
that seems to make sense.
So the facts that you and I invoke will entail either a direct or an indirect denial or affirmation of God.
Affirmation. Not for me. I'm not affirming that any gods exist.
You're not under. Okay, so you want to dispute that if somebody accepts a fact that is categorized as being without the necessity of reference to the necessity of God, that does not logically entail the non-existence of God?
That's correct.
That's false.
That's how it works.
That's false. Let me tell you. No, you're not understanding that. You have purposeful cognitive dissonance here. I'm going to explain to you why.
Well, no, you
have to choose. You choose. There's only two kinds of facts that you can invoke.
Ontologically, yes, but
okay. Now, which fact, which category of fact do you invoke?
Well, you're talking ontologically. I'm not willing to go so far as to.
You invoke facts, do you do so with reference to the necessity of God? Do you do that?
A lot of facts that I don't know, so I can't speak for all facts.
Yeah, unless you're breaking up. When you invoke facts, when you do that, do they reference the necessity of God? Or when you invoke facts, that you choose facts that do not reference the necessity of God?
So
I'm not hearing.
I don't know where.
I'm not hearing anything.
So I don't have a complete picture.
Yeah, are you having connection issues?
Yeah, I think so, because everything was just silent for the last 20 seconds. I'm sorry.
Are you invoking facts without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God? They are without the necessity of God in your view. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I see it as impartial.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. No. Okay. Well, here again, you have cognitive dissonance. If somebody says God is not necessary, have you ever heard an atheist say that God is not necessary?
I've heard some atheists say that.
Okay. Now, is the statement that God is not necessary, is that the equivalent of saying God doesn't exist?
No.
Yes,
Not
it
in my
is.
view.
Yes, it is. Let me tell you why. God is defined as being the necessary precondition of all things at himself. That's definitionally true. Okay, are we clear on the definition of God?
Okay, if we're working with that definition, which I don't accept as everybody's definition, then
Okay,
yeah,
sir, then we're not talking about God.
I'm trying to respond to you. Let me finish, please. So, in this case, under that context, yes, you are correct.
Okay, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about atheism. We're not talking about other entities that may be subject to one or more parameters that you call them God. What we're talking about is atheism. Historically, is the denial that there's a supreme being and creator of all things that are not himself. Now, if one says God is not necessary, and God is defined
Acceptance, as far as I'm going,
as being the necessary precondition, and if you say God is not necessary, that's an indirect denial of the existence of God. If you say God's not necessary, then you're saying is that there are things that can and do exist without God, right?
in essence, yes. However, to correct you a little bit,
Can God, real quick question.
Atheism is the non-acceptance.
Listen, Randolph, how many times have you given me your silly little rhetoric about the definition of atheism? We've been through this, we've been through, of course it is. There are even atheists who have done critiques of your position and have laughed at how what poor research that you did across the broad spectrum in the philosophical literature as to the definition of atheism. But that's another issue. The bottom line here is this: that's another subject. Okay,
it's very easy for me to defend.
The point is this.
I will reference.
Hey, Randolph, we're not discussing that right now.
Yes, we are.
I know. Okay, Randolph, please don't bicker like most atheists do. You present yourself as this cordial atheist, then stop. Okay, hey, Randolph, I don't want to have to kick you from the stage. Randolph,
I would like to defend that.
Is it your position?
30 seconds.
When you listen to me, when you invoke facts, you do so by choice because you believe it's not necessary to invoke God, right?
So first of all, what you're saying, I will reject it unless you give me a chance to defend it.
Randolph, I'm going to give you another warning. I don't want to have to kick you from the stage. I'm asking you a direct question.
Stanford supports me.
Randolph, you're doing what all of the knuckle-dragging teenage atheists do. You're just being argumentative at this point.
And you're refusing
Randolph,
to
I'm trying to get to a point. You're doing exactly what the title of the room does. Atheists troll and you obfuscate. You're trolling and obfuscating right now. Randolph, you can continue to bicker. You can continue to bicker like a teenage girl. It's not going to make you look any better. Okay, as the founder and head of Canadian Atheists, all 50 members. Now, Randolph, it's really simple. When you invoke Randolph, this is a fourth warning. I don't want to have to kick you. Now,
I can't accept your accusation.
Randolph, that's a fifth warning. I don't want to have to kick you. Are you getting my point?
I want the opportunity.
Are you getting my point? I don't want to have to kick you.
But I want an opportunity to defend myself. Less than 30 seconds.
Okay, Randolph, I'm asking you a clear question, and rather than giving me a clear answer, you're obfuscating as the title of the room indicates. Now, can God as an entity actually exist and coexist if there's even one fact that does not necessitate referencing him?
By your definition, no.
Okay. No, sir. Stop with the BS by my definition. Can God, when God, as we have already decided, God proper with a capital G, the supreme being, creator of all things that are not himself,
The Christian God.
Okay, would you please, you know what? I have given you more benefits of the doubt, and you're really beginning to irritate me now.
Well, you're not letting me support my...
Can God...
You're being unfair here.
Okay, I'll start again. You're trolling and you're obfuscating. Now,
I'm trying to have a conversation.
Would you stop over talking me? For the
Then stop
8th
making
time,
false
I
accusations
do
about
not want to have to kick
him
you.
out.
Did you hear my words?
Truth,
I know. I think they speak English in Canada, right?
Trying to talk to him.
English.
You understand the English words? I don't want to have to kick you. Do you understand why I'm saying that to you?
Yeah, but you're not giving me a chance to defend myself.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Rand, yeah, but. This is teenagers say yeah, but. Now, Randolph, what I want to know from you
Don't
is,
insult
can
teenagers.
God, Randolph, for the 9th time, I don't want to have to kick you.
I appreciate
Okay,
that.
that's the 9th time. Are you beginning to understand that I have a problem with your conduct?
I'm having a problem with your conduct.
Oh.
Good.
So where did Matt Fleek go then? Oh dear.
Actually coexist if even one fact does not necessitate referencing him.
In the God world, no.
Okay. Do you invoke that is there even one fact that you invoke that exists without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God?
I'd have to think about that and get back to you on it.
No, you've already answered that question earlier. You already answered. I asked you that same question several times minutes ago, and you said yes.
I did? I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. I said, do you invoke facts that exist without the necessity of reference and necessity of God? And you said yes.
Oh, in the not God world, yes.
Okay. No, sir, I didn't ask you that. I asked
That's
you
what I was,
right
yes,
now, listen to me carefully. That's not what I said. I asked you, when you invoke the actuality of any fact, do you invoke any fact that does not by necessity reference the necessity of God? Do you invoke any such fact?
In the not God world, yes. Many.
I didn't ask you that. Okay? If you
But in the God
evade
world, I
the
can't
question again,
do that.
listen to me
Logically
carefully.
impossible.
Listen to me. This is your last warning. I'm about to kick you for obfuscating and trolling. I didn't ask you about the God or the not God world. I asked you.
Yes, you did.
Listen, last warning, my friend. I've given you more chances than I give most atheists. And you're demonstrating that atheists obfuscate and they troll. And that's precisely what you're doing here. Now, I will ask
If you were my friend, if you meant that about being my friend, you would let me support my point earlier.
I don't consider you my friend. Okay?
Oh, then why did you call me
carefully.
friend?
Listen to me. It's a figure of speech. Now.
Oh, so you're being insincere. Okay.
Do you invoke that there is any fact, and I don't want to hear an answer in the not God or the God worldview. All I want to ask you is this. When you invoke facts, is there even one fact that you can and do invoke that is without the necessity of referencing God? Does any such fact exist?
That's a gray area. I can't give you a straightforward answer to that because there's too much information to deal.
You know what? You are a bullshitter. Do you invoke facts with reference to the necessity of God? Do you do that?
Yes.
Okay, so facts, you do invoke the necessity of God when you invoke facts?
No.
Okay, so when you invoke facts, they are without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God.
Because that's consistent with what I know. Yes.
That's not that. Okay, so you know that there are at least one or more facts that don't necessitate referencing the necessity of God. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay, good. Now, that proposition necessarily and logically commits you to the not God world. Logically and listen carefully to my words, okay? I don't mince my words. That answer logically and necessarily commits you to the not God world.
In this conversation, yes, it does.
No, stop bullshitting, Randolph. It's not in this conversation. When you invoke a fact, either explicitly or implicitly, that is without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God, that logically commits you and necessarily commits you to the not God world.
I can't commit to this reasoning because I'm speaking with impartiality.
Okay, you know what? You are such a freaking disingenuous person. I'm asking you a straightforward question. When you invoke facts by choice, I'll start again. When you invoke facts by choice, that they are invoked as actual and intelligible without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God, such a position that you have affirmed already logically and necessarily commits you to the non-existence of God. It logically and necessarily follows.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Okay, good. And you're gone. Okay. Yeah. You see, this is what pathological liars, trolls, and obfuscators they are. I've already explained it to him. These atheists, including Randolph Richardson, from the founder and director of Canadian Atheists, all 50 members of them in a country of 30 million people. This is what he does every single time I talk with him. He lies. Okay? If he didn't agree this whole time, why couldn't he come up with a rationale that says that a fact that does not necessitate referencing the necessity of God can logically and necessarily coexist with the existence of God? Because if he acknowledged the obvious, then he would have to defend the falsity of God. But Randolph Richardson's whole shtick that he has gone and made it several internet pages on, he said atheism is just this non-belief. Well, I'm just without belief. I'm not denying. He'll say I don't believe in God, but what he means by I don't believe in God is that he is without a positive belief, but he's not denying God. It's because he wants to define atheism in an absolute non-standard way, contrary to the vast majority of dictionaries and encyclopedias, including philosophical works. So this way, he absolves himself of having to support atheism as a universal negative that there is no God. So for him, atheism is not a statement that God does or does not exist. Atheism is just simply a biographical statement about one's personal psychology as to whether they have a positive belief or not. But if you actually look in the literature out there, even by non-theists, they will point out that theism is not simply the psychological condition of having a positive belief in God, but theism is the proposition that God exists, and that atheism, if it's to be used coherently, intelligibly, is the negation of the proposition that God exists. But because they can't defend the proposition that God does not exist, they have to transmogrify atheism from a propositional response to the proposition that God exists into an autobiographical psychological condition where they simply lack belief. And they will die on the battlefield of debate looking like the deceptive, obfuscatory fools that they are. That's finally why I kicked him. He wasn't kicked because I didn't like what he was saying. He was kicked because he was being duplicitous and deceptive and purposely obfuscating what was obvious. If you affirm that there's even one fact that can be invoked as actual and intelligible without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God, you are logically and necessarily committed to a world where God does not exist. Why? Because God cannot logically coexist if there's even one fact that does not necessitate referencing his necessity. But you see, atheists don't, like Randolph Richardson, who is a prime example. Atheists do not care about following reason and logic. They will only invoke reason and logic when it suits their purposes. But when you confront them with something that's a logically necessary entailment, they'll say, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Nope, 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 nope. They're like the tobacco companies years ago in the United States who denied that there was a correlation between cigarettes and lung cancer. All right, if anyone would like to come up and comment, no, you're not welcome, Road Eye. You can hit the road. Put your hand down. Okay, come on up, Ike. Yeah, I'm done with you, Road Eye, and your Optica story bickering. So you can put your hand down. What would you like to say, Ike?
Well, so the fact of food in my fridge is necessitated upon the gravity of my building. And
Are you Michael? Are you Michael? Hold on a second. Are you Michael Fall?
Why, kind sir? Why, kind sir?
Are you Michael Fall?
Why, kind sir? I don't know why you won't allow me.
Okay, goodbye, Michael. Yes, stop the exit. Goodbye, Michael. Go take your meds. Go take your meds, Michael. Okay. Yeah. Come on up, Otangelo. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Michael Fall is somebody who's not playing with a full deck. I've dealt with him many times before.
Hi there, just 2 minutes. I'll go to lunch now. But
what are you gonna have for lunch?
It's Brazilian food.
Is it any good?
Yeah, of course it's good. Have you ever had kind of beans with rice and meat and so forth? That's typical Brazilian food. That's the standard.
What kind of beans?
Black beans.
Okay, now, do those black beans necessitate referencing the necessity of God?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Okay, there you go. There was a straightforward answer. So what would you like to say? Would you like to make a commentary on Randolph Richardson's usual mental perverted gymnastics?
Yeah. You know, Dart, we can come up with whatever argument we want. If someone doesn't want to have God in its life, then they will reject whatever we say. And that's typical. I mean, Randolph is every Sunday being part of that group on Discord with T-Jump, with JL, and so forth. And I had very reasonable conversations with them. But it doesn't matter. You can bring up whatever you want, and they will
Okay, but
simply
the issue
reject.
here, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, the issue here today, we haven't even gotten to the issue of God's existence or non-existence. We can't get even to that point with Randolph Richardson, the founder and director of Canadian Atheist, all 50 members of them, right? Because he lies about the definition of atheism. He comes up with his own proprietary cockamamie definition, which isn't reflected in the reference works, whether encyclopedias or dictionary, or in philosophical works. And in fact, professional philosophers, okay, or semi-professional philosophers who have analyzed what the definition of atheism should be, recognize that people who are defining it as simply a lack of belief are just simply doing so either out of malfeasance or out of their own stupidity and sloppiness. So
Yeah. Let's give you a reference here from.
Yeah.
Let me give you here a reference from Oppie, which is a very well-known atheist philosopher, and he says very clearly.
Okay, well, first of all, tell everybody who Oppie is.
Yeah, Graham Oppie is Australian. He is a philosopher and an atheist, very well-known author of several books and so forth. And anyone that doesn't know him can look it up on YouTube. Now, in a recent video, he said it very clearly. Atheism is the view that there are no gods, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that playing game, we just don't believe it, it's a lack of belief, that's nonsense. I agree with you. I mean, if someone comes to tell me that he has a lack of belief, why should we care?
Well, lack of belief is non-informative.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I mean, are you also making the rounds to tell others that you lack belief in Santa Claus and farting pixies and other fantasy stuff?
Wait a minute, hold on a second. You're telling me that farting pixies don't exist?
Well, I lack belief in farting pixies, right?
Oh, okay. So you would be a farting pixieist. Is that it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize pixies could fart, but you learn something new every day.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I don't make the round on YouTube and Discord and wherever to tell everybody what I lack of. I mean, I want to proclaim what I believe and why. And Randolph and cohorts, they just want to make the round to profess what they don't believe. Why should someone care what these people do not believe in?
Yeah. Look, I pointed out to him this. I said, and you tell me what you think. I stated that God cannot logically and necessarily coexist as even one fact does not necessitate referencing him. Now, an ordinary truthful person would say, yeah, God, as the creator of all things that are not himself, cannot logically coexist with even one fact that doesn't necessitate referencing his necessity. Now, he responds that, yes, as you have defined it, because then he wants to simply qualify everything as definition. The point is this. He has and he does invoke. By the way, I keep on hearing myself. Do you have a headset?
No.
Well, you need to use one because I keep on hearing feedback. All right? Or you need to mute your microphone when you're not talking. Thank you. He agreed that he invokes facts without the necessity of reference and necessity of God. But when I point out to him that such an acknowledgement logically and necessarily commits him to the position that God doesn't exist, he denies the logical and necessary entailment because he knows he can't defend the falsity of God. And because he can't defend the falsity of God, he redefines atheism. He's adopting the word. You'll notice when I asked him the straightforward question, is there a single word in the English language that is used widespread by both professionals and non-professionals to designate the absolute denial of God? All I got back was equivocation. Well, the answer is very obvious. Yes, there is such a word. It's called atheism. But if he is calling himself an atheist, when the word atheist is used widespread in the English language and by professional philosophers to refer to those who deny the existence of God, why then are you calling yourself an atheist then? Why don't you call yourself an agnostic, who they themselves claim that they are without a positive belief in God?
Yeah, I asked once Randolph, what would how would you position yourself if God would demonstrate his existence to you? And we are talking here about the Christian God. And this is a standard question which I make very often to atheists. And his answer is as well a standard answer. He says, well, the God of the Bible is cruel, he is a genocide, he brought the flood, he drowns babies. Such monster I wouldn't...
Wait a minute. He said God drowns babies? You heard him say that?
No, that's kind of T-jump rhetoric, but that's
Randolph Richardson says that same kind. I've heard him say those kinds of things. Do you want to listen? You guys want to hear this? Listen to this, audience. You want to hear what a sick puppy this guy is? I mean, he's a really sick puppy. Listen to this. This is a guy who supports legalized abortion, the killing of unborn babies up until the moment they're born. And his reason is that nothing can be permitted to mitigate against a woman's bodily autonomy. Okay? This is a guy who thinks that a woman's bodily autonomy, whatever that's supposed to mean, grants her the prerogative to kill her baby in the womb minutes before it's born. This is the kind of warped and depraved thinking that we're dealing with.
But you know that he is being consistent with the naturalistic atheist worldview, where you do not have good and evil, bad and wrong. I mean, he can state whatever he wants and then say, well, that's just the moral standard that I made up.
This is the same guy who wants to disparage God. Well, then wait a minute. Is there something intrinsically wrong in one entity bringing about the non-continued existence of another entity? What's wrong about that? You see, this is the laughable thing about Randolph Richardson when he bemoans the God of the Bible as being bad. By what standard? Because you say so? This is a guy... Look, I'll just say one more thing about Randolph Richardson, the founder and director of Canadian Atheists, all 50 members of them, of what a deceitful, evasive little lying person he is. He puts on this faux cordiality. He categorically stated that when he affirms that there are one or more facts that don't necessitate referencing the necessity of God in actuality, ontologically, that this does not logically entail and commit him into a world where God cannot and does not exist. He's openly lying about the entailment. Facts can only exist in one of two realms. Either they exist in a God world by virtue of the fact that they necessitate referencing the necessity of God, or from a conceptual standpoint, a fact would exist within the realm where in a not God world, in the not God world, all facts would necessitate not referencing the necessity of God. So whichever fact that you invoke, it will indirectly, logically, and necessarily entail God's existence or non-existence. But he does not want to admit to the logical entailment, no matter how solid it is, the logical entailment is, because then he would have to change his BS definition of atheism, that atheists don't believe in God, but they're not denying that God doesn't exist. Okay?
Yeah, Dart, I have to go to lunch, but I just wanted to remember you that once I asked him if he agrees that the first golden rule or commandment of Christ to love our next like ourselves, if that improves human well-being. And then he said, well, I don't agree with that. And I even talked to you about this topic. And then he said, well, maybe he has some kind of strange sexual preferences, and
well, the sexual proclivities of atheists, being probably one of the basis, but not the only one, of their God denialism is extremely common. Right?
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Enjoy your Brazilian food. Okay, if anyone wants to raise your hand and come on up, raise your hand. So we see Randolph Richardson again lies through his teeth, as he always does. He tries to present himself as this cordial Canadian, but he's not. He's just another lying, obfuscating, trolling atheist. You know. And by the way, if some of you are new to my interactions with Randolph Richardson, founder and director of American Atheists, Randolph and I have gone around more than 24 times, and every time it is the same deceitful evasiveness as since the first time I met him and the last time. It's the same old thing. So don't feel that I'm being unduly harsh on that little deceptive little atheist. They just, because they don't want to acknowledge God, they can't help but to troll and to obfuscate. Okay, let's take a look at the comment section and see what drive-by keyboard warriors we have. Let's see. Actually, JD, you said, so God created COVID. No, God created this world, and then when God issued a temporal judgment on this world, which included his temporal judgment resulted in certain aspects of biological functionality becoming pathogenic. So you could say indirectly he created it, but in the initial creation, there was no COVID. If you want to say that God's temporal judgment upon this planet because man's rebellion is creation, you could say yes. But in the initial creation, there were no pathogens as we know them today. What does it mean to not make things up? Is that directed at me? Would you like to come up and explain yourself, or are you just a keyboard warrior? Or are you directing your comments towards somebody in the text? All right, let's go through here. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see what stupid comments we can find. Let's see. No, I've never converted Otangelo. Otangelo was a believer long before I met him. Here, yeah, JD. I'll invite you up, JD. Come on up, JD. Yeah.
3D printers and other CNC.
Okay. So we did have excuse me. We did have one unbelieving atheist who was a rarity, who he obfuscated only to a much smaller degree that the rank and file atheists usually employ to a later degree. But the rest of the atheists, they just total obfuscation. Randolph Richardson's founder and director of the Canadian Atheist, all 50 members of them, just obfuscated. He outright denied the entailment that facts that don't necessitate referencing the necessity of God logically and necessarily commits him to a not God world. He says, oh, it doesn't follow. I mean, this is how deranged these people are. They will deny the outright entailment. Well, John M. I think that his position on atheism is not far removed from his position on baby killing. Here's a guy who says it's okay to kill unborn babies because the highest priority is a woman's bodily autonomy. That type of warped thinking is not unrelated to his general way of thinking. Wesley says, if Randolph doesn't accept God as the fundamental, that doesn't mean he claims he isn't. It could still be the case. I could not accept that I have Cheerios in my cupboard, and but you see, that's a category error, Wesley. Here, come on up, I'll explain it to you. Come on up. You've committed a category error, okay? Okay, so do you understand that if you do not accept that God is metaphysically primary or fundamental to all things that are not itself, that is a de facto denial? Do you understand and accept that?
Repeat that, please. My volume's going weird.
Yeah. Thank you for coming up, by the way. If somebody does not accept that God is fundamental, that God is the necessary precondition of all things that are not himself, that is a de facto denial. A denial need not be explicit. It can be implicit or indirect. Do you accept that as true?
It depends what you mean by denial. So there are two ways to deny something. You can say that you don't accept it, and you can say that you believe it is the opposite of what's true.
Okay. You're not giving me a clear answer. Do you accept that the denial of the actuality of something can be direct or indirect?
Direct or indirect? Can you clarify?
And a denial that something is... Okay, a direct denial...
Those are not...
Okay, all right, listen. A direct denial of X could be as simple as X does not and cannot exist. Okay? Now, that would be a direct denial. Now, if we affirm something other than a direct denial of X, suppose we affirm Y, okay? If Y cannot logically coexist with X, and somebody affirms Y, that's an indirect denial of X.
That's correct.
Right. So if somebody affirms a proposition that logically entails that God cannot coexist, then they are indirectly denying God. It is a de facto denial rather than a de jure denial. De facto would just be a matter of the fact, direct or indirect. De jure would be legislative, somebody saying, oh, God doesn't exist. So if somebody affirms that there are facts that can and will be invoked as actual without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God, that is an indirect denial of God. Because God, in the God world, cannot logically and necessarily coexist with even one fact that does not derive and depend upon himself. Were you here for the Randolph Richardson encounter?
No.
Okay, well, you
Only
missed it.
I came in just a moment ago when you said that when he is saying that he does not accept the God worldview, that he is then saying that God does not exist. And all I'm saying is that that's not the same thing, and you said my example was a category error, and I'm not clear why.
Okay, because you cannot accept a certain proposition without it entailing the denial thereof. So, for example, there are some things that you can be neutral on. So, if I tell you that there are 5-pound chunks of gold on the surface of Mars, you can refuse to positively affirm that, okay, without denying it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some propositions that the non-affirmation of are a de facto denial.
So when you say denial, you mean negation. You mean to say
It
that
means
I am saying that it is not
the negation. Okay. Are you of the view the negation of a proposition can only entail a direct negation rather than an indirect negation?
No. You're back to using direct and indirect. No, I don't disagree with how you use direct and indirect.
So my line of reasoning in this particular type of analysis, which was heavily influenced by Christian philosopher Cornelius Van Til, is that the claim of neutrality toward the existence of God, however it is verbally formulated, fails upon careful analysis. Okay? So the typical position that people have is one can truly not believe in God without denying him. My position and analysis is that is a false claim. Okay?
How so?
I'm not saying... Okay, I will give you an analogy. The analogy doesn't prove what I'm saying, but it will illustrate for yourself that the claim in and of itself, unless it is self-attesting and self-authenticating, can be falsified. So if I walk into a pawn shop and I want to sell them a piece of American Civil War memorabilia, and I said, how much will you give me for this? And the guy says, nothing. I said, yeah, but it's from the Civil War. And he said, no, it's not. It's made of plastic. Okay? The fact that it's made of plastic is an indirect refutation that the claim is true. Would you agree?
No, because he just made a direct refutation.
No, sir. He did, but it's based upon that it's made of... What if he just said, I'm not giving you anything, it's made out of plastic?
Okay.
And
yeah,
from
that would
that,
be indirect.
from the fact, it follows from the fact that it's plastic that it couldn't be from a civil war.
Correct. If you
Now-
cut out the part where he said it's not from the Civil
Right,
War, then it's
right.
indirect. Correct.
Okay. So the position is people want to maintain that one can legitimately affirm, deny, or just simply suspend judgment as to the affirmation or denial of God. My position is there's not a third option, and here's why. Is because everybody will have a disposition, an attitudinal disposition toward what encompasses facts. Okay? So individual facts, whatever they may be, will either reside within the God world or the not God world, conceptually speaking. Agreed?
Okay.
Now, the fact that subsists within the God world would then necessitate referencing the necessity of God because it's within the God world. But a fact that resides conceptually within the not God world would not necessitate referencing the necessity of God.
Okay,
So-
hang on. I'm a little confused. Hang on, please.
Okay.
So,
All right.
how does there being Cheerios in my cupboard have anything to do with referencing God? I'm confused on how you get from there to here. I just don't see it. Because that's a fact or not, whether there's Cheerios in my cupboard.
Okay, so what you are saying then is that a fact can be a fact in isolation, standalone, without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God. Is that
I'm not
your
making that
position?
claim. No, I'm not making that claim. I'm asking you how it is the case that it references.
Because facts will have an ontological frame of reference. All facts will have a metaphysical frame of reference. And if they don't, then there are no facts at all.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that all facts in a God world will, by necessity, reference the necessity of God. Because in the God world, God is the necessary precondition of all things that are not himself. In the not God world, God is not and cannot be the necessary precondition of all
But
things.
I wasn't arguing. I was seriously asking how. Can you explain how that link is therefore just a random fact of Cheerios?
Okay, what I'm saying to you is this. One cannot maintain the actual truth of neutrality toward God because they will have a disposition toward facts. One's disposition toward facts will, how shall I put this? One's disposition, attitudinal disposition toward facts, will reveal their true attitude toward God, even if they claim they're not denying God. The claim not to denying God is not the end of the story. The claim needs to be examined for its legitimacy.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying. I don't think I made myself clear, though. I'm not claiming you're wrong or anything. I'm just asking for what... So you're saying this is the epistemological or ontological foundation. I'm seriously asking what is the... How is a fact of Cheerios in my cupboard, how is that relating to there being God as the foundation? I'm seriously just asking the link there.
Because that's the only way a fact can be a fact.
Well, so if I may explain, so like the Cheerios, to get the Cheerios, it had to be made at a factory. The factory had to make dough out of the oats. The oats had to come from a farm. So, I mean, I understand how if
if in this case you say that the farm is the ontological basis for the Cheerios, I understand the link. I'm asking for the explanation.
Right.
Like, how do you go from God to Cheerios? Or anything, a rock, I don't care.
Okay, so the answer is this, is that God is the the metaphysical terminus or starting point. God has revealed himself in creation, and hence there are facts. So let me go over this with you. In order for there to be a fact at all, or anything, there must be a philosophy of factness. Even children have a rudimentary crude philosophy of factness. Would you agree?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, everyone does start with intuition.
Can you have the actuality and intelligibility of any singular fact without there being some philosophy of factness?
Hey everybody, today.
Let me think about this.
It's not a trick question.
I'm not saying
And by the way,
it's a very unique way of asking it. I've never thought about it.
By the way, so far, even though we're not agreeing on certain things, so far, I'm not picking up that you're purposely obfuscating or trolling. Okay? So I want to let you know that even though we may
why would I be? I'm seriously trying to understand your explanation.
Well, I appreciate that. And it sure seems that way, but I deal with a lot of trolls. I deal with a lot of people who obfuscate, and hence the title of the room. Okay?
So I would say then, back to the question you just asked me, and like I said, I've never thought of it in these particular terms. I've never heard anyone put it that way. So if I stumble over my words, forgive me.
Well, that's okay.
So I would say that you do need to have some sort of theory of factness, as you put it, in your head for intelligibility. But I think that has to do with self-intelligibility, because you have to first make sense of things yourself before anything else. Well, no. Hang on.
Let me ask you a question.
But I mean, I wasn't.
Does actual intelligibility depend upon the nature of being, or as we call it, ontology? Can something be?
Yeah.
Listen carefully to this qualifying question. Okay. Can something be truly intelligible without an explicit or implicit nature of being or ontology?
So no, it can't. So nothing can be intelligible without its own nature being intelligible. I think is what you were asking, right?
Do you know what I mean by ontology? Ontology.
Yeah.
It means the. All right, let me just finish. Okay. It means the nature of being either on a grand scale or on a smaller scale. Okay.
Metaphysically, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So can there be intelligibility without reference to ontology?
So I would say no, but you don't have to have. So like a child can experience a certain amount of intelligibility about things, even though they likely cannot get the ontology of a thing correct or even close to correct. They can still make some sense of it. So yes, it doesn't. You don't have perfect knowledge. But yes.
But you see, here's the problem. You're making that evaluation from
that was the last question you asked me about a child.
I know that, but you see, I'm saying that there has to be some actual ontology whether or not the child is cognizant of it.
I agree. So the only reason I said that I brought up the child is because you had brought that up as an example, and I assumed it was because you wanted to make it clear that you weren't speaking of having to have perfect knowledge, that you have intelligibility.
We're not talking about omniscience. The bottom line here is this: we're talking about the issue about why does invoking Cheerios necessitate God, right?
Yes, that's what I was asking. Yes.
Okay, that's what we're explaining. So, when we invoke Cheerios, we're invoking a particular state of affairs or fact. Mm-hmm. Any such invocation of fact is going to require a philosophy of factness. Okay? Even children have a crude, rudimentary philosophy of factness.
Yeah, like an intuitive sense, yes, sure.
Right? That they're yet the fact that they're inexperienced.
I don't think they would understand it or be able to tell you that they do, but I believe that they would have to. Yes, okay. They have to have some sort of theory of the world.
Do little children believe that some things stay the same?
If by little children you mean like older than what, 1 or 2?
Do 3 or 4 year olds believe that some things stay the same while other things change? Did they have that view?
Yes, and I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just clarifying.
Okay, now, so factness requires a philosophy of factness. Do we agree on that?
Yes, I've never heard it put that way, but yes.
Okay. Can you have a philosophy of factness without a metaphysical ontology?
I would say no, because you always have a theory of metaphysics, regardless of how limited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
so I would say no.
Now, in the God world, everything that is not God, mm-hmm. Originates and depends upon the mind and the plan of God.
Okay.
So a fact in question, Cheerios, would not be able to be invoked as a fact and possess intelligibility were its ontology not invoked explicitly or implicitly that it derives from the mind of God. So in the God world, and by the way, I'm not arguing for any generic God, I'm arguing for the God of Christianity, the Cheerios, or any other fact that for that matter, originates in the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God, and in that realm, it would not even exist nor have intelligibility. That its intelligibility in any shape or form is in virtue of its ontology, and its ontology is that it is creaturely, that it originates, derives, and depends upon the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God. Now, if you do not accept that God is and that he has revealed himself, I'm not suggesting that you accept the existence of God apart from the fact that God has revealed himself in creation. But if you choose not to accept that, then what your position will entail, whether you realize it or not, is the invocating that there are facts and their intelligibility.
Hang on. Quick question about something you just said.
Make it quick, because I'll have a Joe Biden and lose my thought, but go ahead.
Sorry. So are you saying that you believe that you can choose what you accept? Because acceptance is just whether you believe something or not. Do you think beliefs are choices? Do you believe that all the time, or sometimes, or?
I'm not. You're gonna have to start over. I'm not understanding your question.
So you said whether I choose to accept that or not. Are you saying that acceptance?
I say accept. I mean accept and believe what I'm saying is true.
No. When you say whether a person chooses to accept that or not, are you saying that? Are you using choose in the colloquial sense, or like literally you believe that anyone can choose what they accept? I'm seriously asking.
I
So that
believe
makes a
that
big difference for.
I believe that there are certain foundational beliefs that are imbued by God and that we cannot choose, but there are higher level beliefs that we can choose to accept or disregard.
Okay. So the way I cannot choose to accept or not something someone says. I can choose to think about it more, in which case, I might come to accept it. I can choose just to dismiss it. But I don't think I can just instantly choose whether or not I believe something is correct. I can think about it and be convinced.
I'm not insisting on that. The point I'm trying to make here is this. Facts will only exist within two possible, I should say, two hypothetical realms, the God world or the not God world.
The only reason I asked is because that leads to
in the God world, what the invoking and instantiating of a fact must directly or indirectly, explicitly or implicitly reference the necessity of God. Otherwise, it would not and could not be a fact within the God world.
So metaphysical ontology.
Can you let me finish your train of thought, please?
Sorry, Paul, I thought you did.
That's okay. I totally appreciate your enthusiasm. I really do, because I don't suspect for 1 minute that.
Well, and if I don't want to lose my train of thought either if I'm confused on something.
Now, so do you agree that within the conceptual God world, that factness cannot be a fact disassociated and unreferenced to God?
Well, in that world, then
I'm saying in the God world.
That's what I'm trying to answer.
There cannot be any. Okay, go ahead.
So in that world, by definition, that is correct. It cannot not be the case.
Okay. Well, my position is, because I hold to the Christian worldview, is that there can't be facts without God.
So here's my confusion. I think I understand my confusion a little better. So you are saying that in that model of the God world, you're explaining the metaphysical ontology. My